Hey everyone, welcome to another typology interview. We have Chris and John. How's it going, guys?
Hey there, good to see you again.
Really, really good to
Great.
see you guys again.
It's great.
Yeah, so it's exciting to have three of us type twins and to poke at the code and see if it's, I don't know, maybe we were typed wrong or maybe we're typed right and this type twin stuff is real. No idea. So I guess we'll jump into it. Also, John, do you want to tell us a little bit about Game Tree and what you're doing with it now? I put the link in the description. I hope that's the right link.
Oh, sure, yeah. I built like a gamer social network. That's sort of a way to find friends. We account for people's personal values and their personality psychologies and their tastes, like including like a number and proportion of things in common. So we're kind of like the main niche app for gamers to find friends. And then the next step is to expand it to be like everything. So you can find like people for like sports or rock climbing. You can find business collaborators, dating. Just applying a lot of this sort of objective personality stuff is the intention to help us like sift the world's people and information better.
Right. Is it like an AI algorithm or it's something that people...
The recommendations for games right now that we have are AI, but the recommendations for people are algorithms. And so we have a personality test that right now is the 16 personalities, but I totally am like so excited to switch that to the OP 512.
Awesome, really cool.
That is really, really freaking cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's sort of like I think a demon FE, like subconscious, like I want to connect with the tribe. Our tagline is literally find your tribe. Yeah. And then doing it through a consume lens of lead consume, being all like, we need to curate the information better. So suddenly like after learning OP, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like I'm just like a blip in the universe that just like felt this need and did it.
So I'm wondering, do both of you guys identify with your type? Does it ringing true with you guys? Everything?
I was on, I think it was like last week or the week before. And since then, I had a chance to rewatch our video and rewatched a couple other videos I had submitted when I submitted to Dave and Shan. And the more I watch it, the more I can see it. Especially the demon. See, I don't see the TI as much as I see the demon FE for me. Like I was talking before we got on, Benjamin. Definitely have the demon FE. Even when you and I are talking, I can see it pop up with like laughter, inappropriate. Just the way demon energy comes off when things are like you're like right now. Whenever I'm doing it, I can feel myself doing it. And the TI, I think for me comes off like I was getting ready to say earlier. It's like conversations in my head with like a back and forth if-then statements where I'm just trying to deduct the logical solution to some issue that I don't even know I'm doing.
It's
Do you resonate with that, John?
It's
hardcore internal monologue.
Talking all the time.
And also us being masculine and feminine auditories combined with lead TI, I think it's going to be some hardcore internal monologues. Do you get that, Benjamin?
I don't know. When I'm ready to actually start talking about things that I'm thinking about, then I'll have to put it into words and then I'll sort of do that thing. But before that state, I think it's like nonverbal, like the way, I don't know if you guys resonate with that, like the nonverbal aspect of TI. Where it's just like...
Sometimes, especially if I'm like on psychedelics or weed or something, I can like visualize like three-dimensional graphs that using physics to represent like models.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's mostly internal monologue.
Interesting.
For me, it comes across as just like when I'm sleeping. I feel like when I'm doing it, whenever I'm trying to whenever I'm just thinking, I can hear myself talking to myself in my head, going back and forth. Like there's a John, you have your Game Tree website. There's a page on it where you list out like the 16 personality types and D&D classes that fall into them. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
I actually commented on that site.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I commented on. You responded back like real quick too, actually.
That was you?
That was me.
Was that coincidence? How did you find that?
This was like whenever I first started with MBTI. Whenever when I first started wanting to write characters and stuff, I started thinking D&D character classes got to match up with some person. Anyways, it was like that's a whole. But like I'll go over that. Your examples in my head back and forth and try to like find faults with your examples or your suggestions all the time in my head. Like,
oh my God.
But like I do it like more often than you would think.
Yeah, so we crossed paths a year ago.
probably closer to 18 months ago, but yeah.
Wow.
Good correcting there on the masculine century. Yeah.
It just says a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over a year ago. Yeah.
Otherwise,
Cool.
I much would have preferred to say 18 months.
It's really good though. I loved it.
Nice. Yeah, that actually gets like 40, 50 people a day randomly visiting it.
I'm
considering
probably
it's something
5.
so
I
neat.
have it bookmarked. So.
Oh wow! I'm glad that you're the first
This is
person
so-
who's organically found that.
Benjamin didn't know this. I was like, I saw you guys talk in a previous video. I was like, oh my god, that guy who did the Game Tree site, supposedly the same type as me. This is freaking weird, considering, like, I didn't know that at all. Looking at that site to start with, it was just such a random coincidence. Which I don't really believe in coincidences, but still, it was like a really random thing.
Yeah, I just posted the link to it.
Yeah, I just got it.
If
I'm
you
gonna
want to
post
share
it here.
that, in case anybody wants to look
It's
at
in
it.
the chat.
Yeah, essentially the idea is that people, you know how like there's all these patterns and like how we behave and think and stuff, and there's certain characters like races and classes in D&D, and that sort of correlate to how people naturally operate. And then also as a game master, you can kind of look at the players and then sort of adjust the game according to the types of people. Like I've noticed the idealists, like the NFs, they're not using combat quite as much. They want to like diplomacy everything. So it sort of like gives cues to the DM, like, okay, so if like your group doesn't have like any NFs, like maybe don't
Have it
plan
all
on.
diplomacy.
I wonder if like
Fuck are we
the OEs after a certain amount of time are just going to end up trying everything because
We keep looking for new shit
yeah. But,
all the time.
So that was just something that was kind of like something fun to write.
cool.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah,
thing
well, it's
that I
interesting. What I found interesting with that is that Chris was like connecting the dots. It's like he came up with this idea, and then he looks it up online. He's like, "Shit, someone else came up with it
I
at
know,
the same
yeah.
time."
Yeah, that's
It was
too
like-
funny.
It is. I mean, it was like exactly what I would have done. Exactly
Wow.
how I, you know.
Oh
like,
my god, this
like
is so
ranges
funny.
The question I asked is like, is this in order? So like, if you have a, fighter, rogue, ranger, is it like most likely to be a fighter? Most likely.
I didn't prioritize by likeliness, and also
No, I know. That's what I asked.
and half the time, because this isn't data backed, this is just based on our knowledge of stuff, and I also like acknowledge at the end that that's like your predispositions, but
Yes.
half the point of playing a role playing game is to try something you're
Something
completely
new.
not, and so it's saying like, don't limit these or don't expect that just because. This is just like if somebody was going to play as themselves, they'd most likely fall in these boxes.
I wonder if you inadvertently created a type twin trap there or something.
I don't know. That's funny.
Okay, so maybe let's talk a little bit about things that you've noticed with your functions that sort of trip you up in life, and maybe see if we can identify with each other on that stuff. So Chris kind of started before this. Maybe we'll save you to afterwards. John, do you have something on that, on where your functions are kind of screwing you over?
And this is also sort of answering the last question. Like Demon and I, position 3. I feel simultaneously like very strong and weak there. It's single activated, having sleep last.
Right.
So on the one hand, like it's kind of a bigger demon than the double activated extroverted feeling at the bottom, being a glass lizard, as Dave and Shan call it. But I feel like the NI is the biggest pain point for me lately. FE definitely caused more tidal waves, but especially being aware of OP and just generally getting older and maturing, like I'm getting better at it. The NI is tricky. On the one hand, I can understand and trust abstract stuff decently. I much prefer data, but I'm not like against intuiting too much if the logic's really tight. But where it really is a problem is not planning in the future. Like I have a good general direction I'm going, like always, but I find that like I won't pack for a trip until like right before, or I won't plan my week like in detail. There's just a lot of like missing details in the planning that I don't do enough, that I think is one of my biggest weaknesses.
I
Does
mean,
that
like,
relate to you guys?
yeah, it relates to
God.
me in that I might pack just before, but like I'll give myself, like, I like doing things last minute, but I'll plan for the last minute, I guess.
Yeah. But it would be, we're all crazy and truth is in the middle.
Yeah.
So like we're all kind of like not really planning enough. At least
Right.
I'm definitely not. So I'm trying to like meditate to kind of like have more time to sleep energy and to kind of like have more self-control and not get caught up in just like what's short term. I feel that I have a lot more control over my days by meditating instead of just working on whatever comes up first or what gives the most dopamine. I can kind of like prioritize better. And I see that as like OI related, some much needed OI for our demon there.
Do you resonate with that at all, Chris?
Yeah, I do actually, especially when like, so I do a combination of both. What you guys like, I wait to the last minute sometimes to do things, but I plan to wait to the last minute. So if someone starts throwing something new into my bucket to add to the plan, it can really cause me a lot of chaos. And I do not like that. I'm an event manager for a living, so I have to plan for a living. And I do kind of like, I always equate it to like rolling a bowling ball down an alley. I get it started, and I just kind of like guide it and make sure it doesn't hit the gutters as it goes. Get the event underway and just keep it out of the gutter as it goes. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
But the NI, it's when especially when people start adding stuff to it. I just don't. I get my demon FE thing comes up where I'm like, oh my god, I had a plan for this, and now 3 more things came up, and you want me to prioritize your shit in my shit, and I don't have room for that kind of shit.
I've noticed TI can be idealistic, because when you're dealing with like a variable, it's like clearly defined and boxed, and it kind of takes an ideal form in a way. And when you're planning for last minute chaos, like it's easy to kind of like not account for things, especially not having some like deeper OI depth to it. So yeah, like I totally resonate where I'll like plan like something exactly to kind of like arrive exactly on time, for example. And then some unknowable factor that is either just chance or not having enough data or something comes in, and that's really where I get thrown off.
That's something too. Like, how do you guys feel about showing up late to something? Does that happen?
Never.
No.
Like if it happens, it's because it was like, a car accident or something random like that. Like because it just doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
Are you stressed out about it? Like getting to play something? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I am. And that's why sometimes I thought maybe I might be a single observer, because that kind of chaos can cause me drama. Like it causes me I get nervous about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like going to the airport, make sure I'm plenty of time to do that kind of stuff. Or if I have like this, I was on 10 minutes early, but I could have been on 15 minutes early. It's like, well, I'm not gonna be on 15 minutes early. That's ridiculous. I'll be on 10 minutes early. Like it makes a difference. Like that kind of stuff.
It's really funny too. I do the same thing. I plan to be early, and then I always end up exactly the time that I planned to be there. It's like, why did I show up this early? Like I could have planned to be there on time, but you always leave that window for the chaos. Yeah.
Because it sucks when you underestimate something. If I have a plan and I even plan for the bullshit that comes up, but I underestimate the bullshit that comes up. So now it's taking me longer to deal with the other stuff that came in. I get that stuff throws me off. I don't like that at all, and that causes the FE to come out all negative.
Something I do find, I think people in general are happy when they're busy, but I find people like us, like we get extra depressed if we're not busy. C.S. Joseph also talks about this a lot as an ISTP.
Okay.
If we don't have things to do, like we kind of like problem solving, and if we don't have like problems to solve, we're not needed or working on something, then like we kind of get depressed easier. But we can also experience a lot of joy when we're in the zone.
Well, I've seen that with Sleep Last a little bit, that they can't be bored. They always need something to do.
Mm-hmm. But I'm talking about even like long-term downtime. Like for me, if I have a lot of meetings lined up, then I'm like in a pretty good mood. But at the same time, I also want to resist a lot of like losing freedom. So it's sort of this weird paradox that I think causes a little bit of inner turmoil.
They got to be spaced out. Like I need like a little bit of just a little breather time, so I'm not late for the next one. Or I need to like maybe. I don't like preparing for meetings. Like maybe a little bit, but not like a lot. Mm-hmm. Just enough. So I'll need that time to prepare. 5 minutes before, just so I can read over the notes and then go do it.
How do you guys feel about multitasking? Also, feel free to ask questions. Also, if some pop up for you guys, how do you guys feel about multitasking?
I suck at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I read a lot, and apparently like people are not that good at multitasking as much as they think they are in general. But I especially suck at it. Like if I'm listening to, like I don't listen to music while working. I if I were to, it would be like without lyrics. But if I'm listening to like a song I like with lyrics, like I'm not going to be able to like do other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you too?
Go for it, Chris.
I have to listen to music when I'm working. Like I need like the I don't know, like it just helps me out. It puts me in a better. It just helps my mood out too.
Even with lyrics?
It depends on how intense the work is that I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in and say that too. It's like sometimes I need to put the music off to focus, but then most of the tasks that I'm doing are just so, monotonous enough that I don't need to give all my attention to it, where I would rather have something in my ear so that I'm not bored. And also where I was getting at with the question is like, I don't want to have 5 things that I'm doing at the same time. I want to focus on one thing, get that done, and then move on to the next. I don't want to be responsible for multiple deadlines and things like that. I don't know if you guys get that.
I like I don't mind multitasking, but what you're saying, I agree with Benjamin, is that you have to do it. I need a step-by-step thing. Like I need to knock one off and then move to the next one, knock one off and move to the next one. As like I might have like 8 things to do. Like I might have, different things to check, make sure this is going on. Did I tell this person this thing? And like too much of it will cause a problem. So I have to immediately knock off. I prioritize it really well. And I've got some years on both you guys, unfortunately. So I think that's helped a lot. For me, learning how to prioritize it really well, and knowing and being really efficient with time. At least I believe I'm really efficient with time.
So a question for me is like, what's some advice for us that you've learned the hard way? Like type related.
I would say, like for me, like I was telling before we got on, I was talking about it, and it's knowing, like managing the demon FE. So you don't like bite off everyone's head, just with your masculine TI. Because like for me, I'm really easygoing and cool until you're not, and then when you're not, it's like all of a sudden this freaking something comes out, and it's just not. It's not healthy for everyone around you to see, and it can cause damage in relationships that lasts longer than it should because people are scared of you. Like people actually be like scared of you, and at least for me, that's what's happened, right? And I've learned to warn people, like, are you trying to make me mad right now? Or like ask them, are you trying to upset me because I'm getting upset? Especially in my personal relationships.
That would imply that you're aware that you're getting upset. Like if you have that level of
I can see it happening as it's happening to me. I can like it's that's not really like good. It doesn't happen in like I don't have there's not a lot of time, and then or I'll just leave the situation. Like I'll just make myself leave. But it happens very like that's the one thing I've noticed. For me, it's helping my personal relationship with my wife specifically.
I'm trying hard to like be more aware of emotions because you only have limited awareness, and if we're so caught up in our logic, we're not always paying attention to how we feel. And what you just said is kind of like it's an F function. So I like something I learned in those situations is like heart rate is an easier one to notice. Is like I can check my heart rate, and if my heart rate's faster than normal, I'm like, oh, I'm being emotional right now. And so I try to like kind of use that and be like, okay, am I just being purely rational, or maybe I'm like, especially feminine FE, you don't want to like hurt people, but logic is kind of pure sometimes. So sometimes like the like masculine logic will cut where the feminine feeling won't. And I try to like not confuse, like, is this actually the best way to deliver this logic, or am I doing it from like a like unconscious FE place?
Yeah.
An example being like
I'm just thinking what you're saying.
Yeah, so there's an example where someone who is kind of like too weak, I would say, because they've been kind of pampered and babied by people who are overly nurturing to the point where they're now 35 and like don't have a lot of like strength because they get all this validation and free stuff and sympathy by like not growing up. And I just kind of like told them about that and how it's like kind of toxic to the people around them and that like they're kind of deficient. And
did you frame it as there are some people that are like this? I'm not saying that it's you, but there are, or did you say, hey, you are like this?
I realized I was like angry, and it's because they were being irrational, where like I told them something and then they're like, oh, like I told them where I got it from, and they're like, where did you get that? And I'm like, I literally just told you. And I realized they're having cognitive dissonance because their identity as a victim is being threatened, so they're just being crazy, and that just triggered my TI. And then so my like I just became mad, and then just kind of like I don't feel it's my responsibility to like fix everybody, but I was just kind of like, okay, I see a pattern between myself and other people who I know, who like this person kind of mooches too much from, and I just gotta like let them know that like for their own well-being that they're just kind of like need to grow up. So I told her like this is coming from a place of love, but I was definitely like I realized like halfway through that my heart rate was raised, and I was like, oh, I'm mad right now.
I find sometimes some of my most emotional reactions are when the logic is being trampled or disregarded. With people, do you get that too?
I think any lead T is gonna get that.
Yeah,
for sure.
But like I get logic, I get emotional about the logic.
Yeah, when
I'm wondering if that's a TI thing. Yeah.
When something doesn't make sense and the people are insisting on it, or I'm trying to think of an example.
I asked the ENTJ, so an ENTJ, like what's something that bothers them about people, and she said when people like go back to a reason they already gave, and like instead of bringing up something new, and like that's the lead. It's TE, but it's lead T, and out of everything in the world, like some people could say like people who smell bad or something, but she's like, I hate when people do this like logical argument thing. That's
I've seen that with TE, yeah, because it's like give another reason, but it's like no, this is the reason. Why would I need to give another one? Like I'm gonna give you the same reason every time. This is the reason.
Yeah. Oh my God, yes.
You get that too, Chris?
No, I'm just thinking of the person who I really think was probably an ENTJ, and the arguments that we would get into. It was a right. That would make that I can relate to that. Like why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that? And you tell them the reason. Like
that reason's getting old. I've heard. That's an old reason.
But it's the reason. But it's the truth. The reason why it didn't work is the truth.
But they want to.
That's why I keep repeating it.
Yeah, Shave said they like to like make a pile of reasons, whereas we just like, have a stack, and we're like, oh, it's there. See, it's right there.
Yeah. Let's get to a couple of questions here. So this was just in the general chat. Just I would look at maybe S or over N or OI or OE. Just sorry, I'm not going to pay attention to that too much here. Also, this one, it's a good question, but also not going to pay attention to it. Sorry, because it's not really in the scope of this. It's like, do we realize something about beta quadra? We're just going to speculate. We're all ISTPs. We can't confirm with other ENFJs, or you know what I mean?
I've noticed that we're very purpose-driven, is a personal observation.
I mean, yeah. Does that mean alpha quadra isn't? You know what I mean? Does it mean
it is a pattern I've been tracking?
Okay.
Yeah, but like I don't know if that's true. It's not enough.
Right. Yeah. Okay, here's one. Are most ISTPs, TISE, calm in a crisis? So I can't talk about most of them, but are you guys calm in a crisis? Or is this a myth?
I am. I mean,
fucking calm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like I know exactly what to do and how to do it, and my problem is more with the people in the crisis. It's like, guys, this is what we got to do, and no one's listening to you. And then it's like, all right, let's just go along with you guys until you guys actually want to ask me. I don't know. That's what I feel like.
It's time like slows down. I've almost died a bunch of times. Well, I didn't almost die because I like almost never actually get hurt, but like a lot of people would have died a lot of times. But like time kind of slows down, and I'll do like perfect like acrobatic things to like avoid death.
In like an SD sort of way. You mean like in that kind of crisis?
Yeah, where I'm like upside down,
like a physical threat,
and I'm like, okay, I gotta like protect my head, protect my iPhone, and maintain momentum. And like I'm like or like flying on a highway, and I'm just kind of like, okay, what's the best position for me to like kind of like be in right now, instead of just like
SE is really weird like that. Sometimes I'll just catch things that are falling, and I'm not even aware that they're falling. I'm like,
Yeah,
did that
I
fall?
never fall myself.
Yeah,
Like you reach out and grab something that's just falling off the fridge or something. Like you open
and
the
you
door,
didn't even
it's
know.
falling, you just catch it real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't even. You're like, I didn't even know that fell. How was that in my hand? Like, how did I catch that? I don't know.
I used to like not like having SE that much because
Right.
like, the physical world doesn't matter as much anymore.
It
Because
doesn't.
we're not
Yeah.
like in a state of nature, but I still feel kind of cool sometimes when it is useful.
Mm-hmm. So I think crisis would be like chaos. I don't know. You have to be somewhere and your car breaks down. What do you do? That sort of crisis. Or somebody falls and hits their head and they're bleeding. What do you do? Like that kind of crisis.
Yeah, like I had like I thought I was in a movie theater once and there was something going on behind me, and I thought it was this is my bad NI probably too. I thought someone might have been. It was dark. It was like so you can't see what's going on. And all of this ruckus was going on behind me, and someone was like running down the steps, and I thought this is an active shooter, so I tackled the dude. I got up and tackled the guy in a full theater, and I'm like having some hey, go ahead and call 911, and I'm holding this guy down. And it turned out he was just anyways, but like that kind of stuff happened. Something else happened too at work where I'm not gonna get into it because I don't want to give too much away. But the person I was with was really surprised at how well I handled the situation, and I didn't even think anything of it other than just to do it.
Wow.
So it's actually a very useful tool.
Yeah, I got a couple of examples of my ex-wife fainted and she had the baby on her, and like everyone else was just completely paralyzed, and I right away ran in, made sure the baby was okay, like took care of everything, and then by the time everyone came to, they're like, wow, you just took care of this stuff and we were all paralyzed.
So you're like Superman moving really fast, and then they're all like
well, they didn't know what to do, and so yeah, there was that. And then there was like another situation when I was in the Army where like we sort of fell asleep after like an all-night mission, and then we had a bunch of people attacking. Like I was alone in the van, and they just opened up the van and they started trying to rush us in the van. Just like me and one other guy sleeping there. So I like right away pulled out my gun and started shooting at the ground, and they all ran away. But like things like that, where it's just like I know what to do. I've got
wow.
That's actually very good.
I feel like there could be a stream of ISTP stories.
And it's great if you're holiday shopping in a mall. You can like cut through people really easy. I'm great at navigating crowds.
Oh man, but then you get stuck behind some people sometimes who just are not considerate.
And
they're just like
deal with slow people.
And then they go exactly where you want to go, and then you have to.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest frustrations is like people being incompetent and wasting my time.
Oh, I can't stand like unaware people bother me. That bothers me. It's a trigger.
Right, the unawareness. That's like the lack of SE. Yeah. So how are you guys dealing with disinformation crisis, science denial, and unreality in politics, things like that? You looks like you really want to answer that, Chris. Go for it.
Well, no, I don't want to answer because I think it's ridiculous. I can't. It is like it's so this is like where I get confused with T and TI. Like it's just reality, man. Like it's just like there's real stuff and there's stuff that's fucking bullshit. And the people who believe in the bullshit, I just don't understand how anyone can believe in. How can you determine it's true? Well, you just source out the information. And if it turns out to be a good source, then it's probably going to be true. I mean, you can't guarantee it 100%, but shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, according to like C.S. Joseph, I don't know where he got this from, but there's like optimistic and pessimistic functions that alternate, and us having SE second makes it a pessimistic function. So we're going to kind of be more doubtful or screening or like questioning stuff. Like even when I'm talking, if I give like a statistic that I haven't like thought of or mentioned in years, like I'll actually go and look it up just to make sure, like while I'm talking to somebody, just to make sure I'm not giving bad information. And I don't.
But isn't that realistic? I mean, I don't know. I think that's being a realist.
But we're optimistic in our logic, where we might be like, our ideal logic says this, and we blindly believe it. Where like it might be like, if we were more pessimistic, we might question ourselves more, or be like, oh, we might be right, but there's more unaccountable things, which is what kind of makes us late.
I mean, the pessimism for me comes out like I'm always constantly trying to find holes in what I have or what I know, what I think I know. but not like reality-based shit. Like, I know there's a tree behind me. Why do I know there's a tree behind me? Because I can see it. You know, I don't need to like investigate if that's fucking real. Excuse my language. Like, I'm sorry. Just, oh.
I mean, for me, it would be nice if people would like see the truth and stuff, but I don't feel like it's my responsibility to inform them of it unless they're trying to push it onto me. That's when it annoys me, when they're trying to convince you that something's true when it's clearly just not. It's clearly just a delusion, and it's just like, yeah, keep that out of my head. I don't want to consume that.
Something that I would mention alongside this is being lead consume.
Right.
I mean, if you're a data gatherer, then you're usually gathering facts, which are kind of hard to like dispute. But also being lead consume, like it surprises me how little a lot of people know. For example, like what's the population of your country? It's hard to like be a good voter if you don't even know what the numbers mean. Like if they say this many people died of COVID or this many people are unemployed without knowing percentages, like it's meaningless. And people don't even understand that, and that blows my mind. Where it's not even just about disinformation, but it's like, how can you even be a rational adult thinker if you can't comprehend like the issues?
Okay, so for me, I don't care if people know that data.
I hope for people.
Yeah, you don't need to know that data unless you're trying to make a conclusion with the data.
But if we live in democracies where people are voting and they don't even know like if they're voting about like certain things, or there'll be like 12,000 people want this, like 12,000 as a percent of like 120,000, or as a percent of like
what the data means.
Yeah.
Let's put it in its place. You sound like
and
I had that conversation in either last time I was with on talking or in my typing video about voting. It was interesting you use that example. So
yeah, so that's something that I think ties into this, is that I think some people like they don't do the right gathering. Not only are they believing wrong things, but they're not like collecting right relevant like horizontal and like vertical facts to it to like even be able to contextualize the data into useful information.
Yeah, they're putting it in bad context.
Yeah.
The context is bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like so much of the news isn't actually about giving news. It's about entertainment, and people like don't realize like how much that's true, and they kind of like absorb all these beliefs and opinions without even understanding what it actually is or what reality is.
Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier too with like conspiracy theories. So there's the one I was specifically thinking of is like the SE-DOM conspiracy theories, where really what they're afraid of is they're really afraid of the control, and they're really afraid that someone is controlling them, and like they're not aware that someone's like pulling their strings. That's really kind of their fear. And so what they do is like they're tracking all of this stuff in reality, this and then this and then this, and they're like, okay, what's causing this chain of events to occur? And for me, that's not something that I like. You know, it's interesting, but it's not something I do. It's like, okay, so there's a crisis. And then the government decides, okay, because of this crisis, we're going to behave like this. We're going to be more controlling over the people. And so, okay, I know that the government wants more control over the people, and they're just using it as an excuse. But then to say that they caused the crisis itself in order to get the more control, that's where it sort of messes with me. And like, why would you do that? Like, there's crises that are going to pop up everywhere. Why would you say they caused this one?
Yeah,
like,
they draw wrong conclusions or just won't draw any conclusions.
Right.
I have 4 friends who are like pro-Trump. Like whether, I mean, I don't know about now, but like, you know, like between like meh to like actually positive, and every single one of them is SETE.
Cool. All right.
And that's like a pretty unlikely statistic. And Trump himself, I believe, is lead SE. So I wonder if they're more likely just by a wide margin to kind of like believe that vein of logic or something, or that.
I wonder how significant that is, because like I know other SETEs that are really anti-Trump as well. So I'm wondering.
Well, 4 out of 4 with 32 types is like pretty unlikely.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying all SETEs, of course, it's bell curves, but I think that it probably shifts in that direction. And that, again, I'm not saying that at all, because like.
Do you guys do that a lot with the probably? Like, okay, it's probably this.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
For me, it's like I think it's like the demon NI, where it's like I'm gonna preface my guess with this is probably, and if I'm wrong, then it's like, well, I said probably.
I think it's also just true, because we don't know things. We're just tagging.
You always got to give yourself an out, because unless you know, you always give yourself a. At least I want to.
Right.
You know.
Let me get rid of this comment here.
The one thing you said, Benjamin, was you don't care about like going back to like what people believe or giving you information or forcing your opinions on people. In the last little segment was
Right.
I can relate to that unless that person is within my close circle of friends, like my people I truly care about and love, kind of thing. But then again, they wouldn't. There's only one that would even remotely believe any of the bullshit, and that's because of where she lives and unfortunately the circle she was running in for a while. I think it's changing in her life, so that's good. Thank God. Thank God. So yeah, I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so there's a guy at work who doesn't believe that COVID is real. He thinks it's all made up, and then all of the deaths that people are having from COVID is just all it's like they're dying from other things, and then they're blaming COVID. Like there's stuff like that where it's just like, I'll poke at him and I'll make fun of him, but like I'm not going to try to change what he's thinking. I'll make fun of what he's thinking. Yeah.
I will. I think more than you guys. I'll be down to like get into it with people and just
I'll make
try
fun
to share
of them all
data
day
and
long.
logic.
Like I won't like. Anytime politics comes up at work, and if it's someone I disagree with, or politics comes up anywhere, and I immediately just okay, we'll just agree to disagree. I'm not going to try and change your mind. I'm just not, because
more and more that's the case for me.
I don't know. It's too much wasted energy in my part, man.
Apparently, it takes like a few years to rewire the brain from like a major belief. So like that's something I've also been like going easier on people with, is like we can change our logic faster than most people because our identity is logic, and so we can just like kind of change on a dime more so than most people, I find. Where other people, like they kind of like it's like wired into their brain a little bit differently, where it takes more exposure and more repeated things for their identity.
I think that's also an OE thing where we're updating our worldview easier. We're actually trying to update our worldview on the front end, whereas OI is forced to do it. The OI is more forced to do it on the back end. So
I'm always trying to change my mind. I'm always seeking new shit. Like the amount of consume I do is ridiculous. So I'm always trying to think out something new. Like, is this better than this? Is this better than this? Does this make more sense than this?
Before me like talking to Shave on so far as the typing goes, I thought I was in like NI-FI or I thought I was in FI-NI. Sleep last, I know, but when I got
FI, so
you thought you were FI as well?
Yeah, for a long time I thought it was FI. It's something I went back and forth with, and a month later from now I might go back and forth with it again, just because it's something I constantly question. It's painful, but yeah, I thought it was FI for a long time.
Once I got the real typing, they said like the majority of people are highly resistant and very emotional about it. But for me, it was like so out of left field because like FI-NI and ISTP are so different. But I just sort of like asked for the reasons was like my next question, and then she gave me reasons, and I just quickly was like, yeah, that makes sense. I guess I'm an ISTP. And then I was almost like happy because I was like, oh, now I have a better lens that I can see the world through. And I went and like started rewatching a lot of things from like an ISTP point of view, like relating information to kind of like overwrite the old ones that were incorrect. And I was very happy for it.
Did you do an official typing, or did you do phone, or I did mine via phone, and because I did mine via phone, to me it did it like I found a crack. Maybe there's a crack in this because we didn't do the actual official typing thing, and then oddly, this is just bad NI probably. They came out with the best type video. Like, remember they did the best types in ISTP? Yeah. Well, I got typed like a week or two before that.
I was shortly before that.
I was like,
too.
I'm like, yeah, and then like it had like I was like, I wonder if they just threw me in this thing just to shut me up and get me out. Quit emailing me, just here, kind of thing, like get rid of me. But
it sounds like Demon NI. Yeah, it sounds like Demon NI. It's like everything, or I don't know, IPness, where it's just like everything's about you, right?
Oh yeah,
the world revolves around you. Yeah,
I need more attention.
I thought it was just because we're so awesome that they finally recognized it.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. We have a question here. How much responsibility do you put on someone when you're judging him versus it's not really his fault? It's just bad genes. This is Antoine is an NITI, by the way.
When I was younger, I put more responsibility on the person, and as I've gotten older, I realize not everyone has bootstraps to pull themselves up by. You know, like some people need help. That's my contribution.
Yeah,
and when
I
I
think
was
you're right.
younger, it was always about their fault. You know, I made my lot. You got to make your lot. Blah blah blah. And then like my wife she was much more. You know, not everyone has a chance, or not everyone you know thinks like you do either. Not everyone has that. Like, I'm pretty hard on myself, so
That's just basic projection, right? Because we're always projecting that everyone can do things like us.
yeah.
But it's like we're really shitty at certain things that we're unaware of, and then people are saying the same thing about us. It's like, why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing that better? And it's like, I'm not responsible for that. No.
Yeah, especially learning type has been a really
Yeah.
big blessing. Just being able to kind of understand, that not everybody thinks like us, and that we have like a certain role, and that we're overusing our hammers. And I mean, already I think a little bit systematically, especially as I get older. But I think OP is giving me more and more where it's less about an individual and it's like their type or culture or the system.
Yeah, I wanted to ask back on the views thing on like. I find that like whenever there's like polarization or whatever, I find that I don't want to pick a side. It's like, okay, something's wrong in both camps here. Like, I don't want to be associated with either one. Like, there's got to be a higher truth that unites them in some way. And that's really what I'm looking for. I don't know if you guys identify with that.
I'm trying to think of an example for myself. In that, I know like I have a hard time picking a political party. You know, I tend to just don't want to like. It depends on who's running. Like I have a hard time, like that kind of thing. I can see. I play devil's advocate all the time, for myself and for other people. It causes me grief with the tribe when you play devil's advocate as much as I do. Like, why don't you just take the answer for what it is? Well, it's like I gotta find holes in all the answers you give me. Like or look at the other side of things all the time. Oh my God, my first wife and I got so many fights about this. Holy shit. She would always like, why don't you just take my side? I'm just saying this so you could. I was like, well, you might be. See where you're wrong on this. This doesn't make any sense. And so, like that part, does that make any? That's how I relate to it, Benjamin.
That's something I'm working on. I think they made an episode. They made an episode about how people like are like they're comparing about TI and how like compared to a TI user, everybody's like sitting on top of their cars, like driving with the steering wheel through the roof, and we're all like, "Why are you doing this?" And they're like, "It's more fun." And we're just like we don't consider that. So I'm trying to kind of like grow more by understanding like you might be right, but you might be dead, or you might be right, but it doesn't really matter. So that's something that's made me just a lot better, is not always like having to be right or knowing right is like, it's like right is like overvalued. Like reality doesn't filter for truth. It filters for survival and self-interest.
Yeah, I think it's that double masculine consume too. It's like when you consume something, you automatically have to filter it. You automatically have to validate it as right or wrong. So it's like, sorry, I got a call. So yeah, it's like when you get that consume coming in, that's when you do the filtering. We're doing it all on the front end. And so then we'll push back on people who are like not giving good information. Okay, that's wrong. I got into trouble with this the other day where it's just like someone told me information that I already knew and I'm the one that told it to him. And it's like, and I'm just like, I told you that. I didn't have to say that. I did not have to say that I told him that. I could have just been like, oh yeah, that's interesting. And then move on.
Yeah.
You know, I had a very good friend of mine tell me, and I think he's a TI user. He said something, and he's older too. He's like my age. He said, you know, and we were talking about arguing with, or playing devil's advocate. Though when you're right, you're making someone else wrong. And if you love that person, do you really want to make that person wrong? Like if you really care about them and their happiness, do you want to make them wrong all the time? So I try really hard to remember that conversation that he and I had whenever I'm dealing with people, especially if I care about the person. You know, if it's like someone I don't really care about, then or if it's a professional setting or whatever it is, and still there's relationships need to be built in a professional setting. But I'm specifically thinking of my wife and my close friends. Like I'm not gonna just prove you wrong just because I can.
that right there, what you just did, like correcting your own thoughts in the moment. It's like,
Yeah.
where did you go? You went into your TI there. You're like, okay, I'm going to argue with myself and then go back and forth and argue with, yeah, I
That's
see
the
myself
voice
do
inside
that.
my head, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
I saw something interesting about like ISTPs kind of build as we go, whereas like an INTP kind of like architects it and then reverse engineers or does like everything in a process, or we just kind of like fuck around and like solve it with tactics. I found that to be kind of true, and especially
How
compared
so?
to
Yeah.
INTPs. Like INTP will have kind of an abstracted, like futured out sort of like what's like if they're building a building, they'll like plan every kind of detail, but I just kind of want to get started instead of like spending like half the time in advance just not doing anything. I kind of want to just get started and then kind of wing it. I have like a tendency for that sort of behavior.
I have to get.
And
I
that-
have to immediately get it, or I'll never do it. I'll just sit on it forever. If I don't like get started on it, like as John said, like you've got like all these things you're doing, and I was like, man, that's impressive. That dude just like he must just jump into that shit to get it done. Because I'd sit there and just want to try and plan it or think about it too much instead of just doing it. Not so much planning, but like thinking it, breaking it down, finding problems with it, trying to make it perfect.
But I can be really negligent about like holes, where like even like this project with these like kind of tarot cards for like business advice, getting people to ask themselves questions, which I think is a sleep last thing where we don't spend a lot of time just thinking and pondering. So I made these cards to kind of like assist like thinking and asking questions. And with that, like there's so many like gaps where I just like kind of like didn't like closely spec stuff out that would like add days to the process sometimes, like working with an illustrator, for example, where I just like, you know, I just kind of like, I'm like, oh yeah, we should probably have like a legend to like correspond to the category icons so people know what those mean. And like I didn't add that until like the last like 3 quarters, whereas I feel like a lot of people would have had that figured out before they even started.
I'm wondering, do you guys have this too, where it's like you're into something, kind of like an INFP would be? It's like I'm into this fad, like I'm into indie music now. Now I'm going to move on. I'm into typology. Now I'm going to move on. I'm into music. Like, do you have those periods of time in your lives?
Obsessively.
Yeah.
All the time. Like, yeah. And then, but sometimes I'll go back to it. Like, I'll have a time where I'm playing WoW, or a time I'm into, you know, writing, and I'll go back and forth, and I'll start something new. But it's like a intense, focused concentration. Like all my spare time, when I'm not working or working out, I'm doing this hobby.
Right.
Yeah.
Even
So
last night, I might get back into like D&D role-playing games, but there's a game called Pathfinder that's basically like a much more TI happy place D&D. Overall, I think it's better, but especially for a TI user who wants to kind of like have a more accurately simulated reality. And I was like frustrated that I didn't remember the differences from a long time ago, and I looked at it and it was past my bedtime and I was sleepy, but I was like must consume and like know the differences like right now, and like I knew logically I shouldn't do that, but my like consume is just, and combined with like the interest, just like can kind of get out of control sometimes.
Oh yeah, and like for me, if I do something like that, I'll just lay in bed and constantly think about the differences, or just replay it in my head as I'm falling asleep. That's what I'll fall asleep to, like doing that kind of shit.
So yeah, does that stuff often also like interrupt your sleep? Is just like, let me just do one more page. Let me just do one more match of this game. Let me just, yeah.
Oh my god. Yes.
With
I'm allowed to do another one.
I played Dota, and I enjoy, I think, planning like builds, like items and abilities and stuff more than actually playing even. And I found that's true across hobbies. Do you guys get that?
Yes. Oh, back when I used to play World of Warcraft, I had played, my play time was actually like years, like almost 1,000 days back in the day, and I would just basically reconfigure my character, retool my character to optimize them as much as possible. Like try something new that no one else has done. People think they have it. I was like, I'll see if I can't tweak it just a little bit more. And I would just do that for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
Big pattern I noticed is there's the meta, which is like what's the popular thing to do that kind of is either like observable and objective reality based on like a win rate, or what's popular, like what are the pros doing or what are the most people doing. And TE users tend to copy the meta, I've noticed, like way more often. But I'm sort of like, yeah, like a hipster where I'm like, I want to do my own thing and find some niche strategy that nobody else is using.
Yeah, I want to invent my own meta in that.
Yeah.
analogy. Yeah.
And
all
I
the
know
time.
it's holding me back, and I know that like if I want to be better, I would use the meta more, but I'm just like too
Oh my
stubborn.
God. That's so true. I had that. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly. Oh man.
It's our lead introverted decider
I spent
It
years
feels-
doing that.
It feels very aggressive too, where it's like someone's blaming you for not following suit or not following like the meta analogy. So it's like everyone's doing it like this. Why aren't you doing? And it's like, dude, there's no rule, there's no law that forces me to do it like that. Maybe I'll find a better way. Maybe my way's better. You don't know.
Just another game.
Yeah.
Because there's like, they would have cookie cutter builds, like, there's 3 different cookie cutter builds, whatever it would be, but you find a way to tweak it for your play style, the way you do something, a certain way, so you found a way to tweak the cookie cutter build to make it your own, to optimize the way you play.
So I'm just noticing also that like we're going really deep into whatever we're talking about here. We're not really paying attention to the tribe. Like, is this interesting to people? Do we even care? So how else does your Demon FE sort of come out like that?
Yeah, I forgot there were people for a second there.
I don't have chat on. So,
whoa, 27 comments.
So like, how does your Demon FE come out, Chris?
Well, I'm trying to think of an example outside of just like explosive temper, right? Where it's like sharp.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, here's one. Like I don't like one-on-one. Like if I'm going out with friends, right? I'd go out with friends, plural. It's better if I go out with more than 2 or 3, like more than one person. That way, you don't have that awkward pause in conversation or whatever. I'm much rather have 2 or 3 people out, so the conversation's flowing and it's easier to play off each other. That part's, I like that. I don't mind one-on-ones. I don't mind them. I just would prefer 2 or 3 people as opposed to a one-on-one group. 5 and 6 is great. Big parties where I don't know anyone but 1 or 2 people I don't like doing. Especially I'm the first one there because I'm always on time. So you got that moment of like, oh, it's me and the host for the next, 6 minutes, and I'm gonna like, how you doing today? I'm doing great. You need any help? That's that's Demon FE a little bit.
What about you, John?
I think that what you said relates to SE as well a little bit with the temper, because it's sort of like because we're sort of in the moment in a certain way, or have a shorter horizon, like moment by moment. We feel like if something doesn't happen now, it's never going to happen. So, like if we don't like let something out, then we kind of feel like we might have to like interrupt or like overreact now, because if we don't do it now, then we're going to forget. And I've noticed that we're not very good at holding grudges.
Yeah, I'm bad at holding grudges.
Yes, I think part of that.
Too.
Yes, I think it's like in that situation when it applies to the FE, it's Demon combined with our SE, where we can just be kind of like weird there.
Yeah,
I've actually gotten. This is going to sound terrible.
I think it's feminine feeling too. Sorry, go ahead.
No, as I've gotten older, I hold grudges more now than I did when I was younger. When I was younger,
you're growing.
No, but it's not a healthy thing to do. I don't want to hold grudges. When I was in my 20s, I didn't care. If you wrong me, we'll explode over it and then move on.
So one thing I was seeing a lot recently, this is just from deep diving a bit, is that like TI, our intentions are quite complicated. Like we have complex intentions, and we're not always explaining to people the intentions that we have. And I find that that's like a big void in people's lives, because then because we're not telling them our intentions, they start telling us what our intentions are and start projecting onto us what our intentions are. And I don't know if you guys get that same thing, but that's what I get with myself. It's like, okay, this was your intention. And it's like, no, that wasn't. Why don't you ask me what my intention is? I know what it was. Like, I'm really clear. I know what my intentions are at all times. And it's also something, it's weird for me to think that other people don't know what their intentions are. So I don't know.
Shave said that about masculine consume, double masculine consume, is they're the most aware of what they want.
Yeah, I
so
can
that
see that.
sounds related.
I don't know if want and intentions are the same meaning here.
I said related, not like.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
There's a TI moment.
Sorry.
I said related.
But I mean, do you guys get that that you're leaving that void of giving your intentions behind?
Yeah.
What you're, yeah.
Especially if it goes off bad, or what I did, like, hurt someone. I was like, well, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings over this, so I am really sorry.
I mean, even just like, okay, so like let's say with Game Tree, because I'm getting the same thing with YouTube, for example. People are always asking me like, what are my intentions with YouTube? It's like, should I be communicating that? Should I just be telling people what, like?
I don't get that necessarily. For example, I was the first person to ever post an ENTJ thing because like before OP, I thought I was an ENTJ, and like every test puts me as ENTJ even now. And I remember I made like a portrait of an ENTJ thing that I put out, and the very first thing is I just started like saying, what are my intentions and why am I doing this? And then I noticed I did that later with something as well. So I don't think I have the intentions quite as much, but something I might do is not correct like a gap in information, or if I forget something that makes something else make sense and then it moves on. Like I don't want to like interrupt or like take the thing that like might have sounded dumb and add a little spin to it so it doesn't. Like I might just kind of let stuff go more than I probably should, or I'll like overthink it later.
Maybe it's like, okay, it's to do with your how people are perceiving you. Like you're not trying to control people's perception of you. You're just responsible for being as true and right as you can to yourself, and then people should perceive you properly because you're
somewhat, but then also not going back and like correcting stuff. For example, like I joked about the ISTP, like where they recognize that we're the best type, and like I could amend that by saying like, oh, but like obviously we're all bell curves and stuff, and there is no best type. But I didn't say that, so somebody watching could just be like, oh, this guy's an asshole. But like I didn't like add that because then somebody else said something and like whatever.
You can't make everyone happy, so.
Yeah, right away when they did that, my heart sort of stopped. I'm like, oh my god, all the tribe hate I'm gonna get now because they said ISTPs are the best type. It's like I don't want to be an ISTP right now.
You know what's weird too with tribe hate or like fucking I don't know. I have a never mind. I want.
It's like I don't mind.
I'm thinking in my head.
I just don't want anyone to say that so that the focus is not like the spotlight. Basically, spotlight is bad. Is my association with spotlight.
I don't mind spotlight too much, but I think I miss things like more so than average because of like I think I'm more FE than you are. But in general, like when I saw like ISTP is the best type, I didn't think about the tribe hate immediately, but I think that is a better reaction. I was just kind of like, oh, like why are they saying this? Because like it's not like I think every person kind of views the world from their point of view, so they think that their way of seeing things makes sense. But I think that the tribe hate is a layer that I just didn't think about. Like I don't think about the tribe perception that much, just because it's way down there at the bottom.
Yeah.
I lean into the tribe hate.
What does that mean?
Like, you know, I'm a counterphobic. Well, I'm a 6 on the Enneagram, and I think some of that is a counterphobic 6. So, if you're gonna hate me, fucking hate me. Or like I get, like, I'll try. That's like, you know, the whole thing I go back to, you know, I'll ask if I had the feminine FE and then all of a sudden you'll run into a masculine TI, man, so you're going to fucking hate me, do it. And we can have a conversation about it or we won't.
It's just so many times in my life, like once you start falling, then it snowballs. It's just like, oh no, now I'm going down. The entire tribe is going to come against me. Like that's, and I like it's happened enough times where I'm afraid of that happening again.
I was just living in a community in the desert. I realized that I start a lot of communities, but I don't join and integrate them into them that often, like since university. And so I actually was like, proud of myself for like, you know, like at first I felt like kind of a need to like optimize and control things because I just saw how inefficient stuff was, and like it was just like too much democracy and like beating on the bush, or one person's not happy when 15 people are, and I was just like feeling like, okay, I just need to take control because I think I can run things better. But after a while, being able to relax, and I found that like I was actually able to be a community member like normal. And I actually like I felt like it was like I was very conscious of it, knowing my type and like the weak FE. And then like the very like end, I found out like the head organizer just like was mad at me because like towards the end, I think I was like a little too socially burnt out. So I wasn't doing things. And that's when they were ramping up. And I didn't read that at all. I found out after the fact, and they didn't make me like a really important introduction that they said they would do. So I feel like I kind of like my FE sort of blundered at the end by not like paying attention or just like not managing that as much. And so like, yeah, I think that that's still like a tribe issue there. But working on it.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you guys have anything like? Have you guys been able to see that something is similar between us or different? Have you noticed anything as we've been going on?
The meta popped out a lot. That we all like don't do the meta.
Yeah, I think that's a TI thing in general. It's just like I don't want to follow everybody else's reasons.
We're all very careful with the words we choose. That we would make sure.
Are we?
Yeah, I think so.
I've been accused of talking sloppy before, so just
no. I think that like we're saying what we mean to say.
Okay.
Like like we're very careful when we choose the precise word for the language we're trying to correspond. Or for me, like I was getting ready to say something. It's like I can't put this in the words the way I want to, so I'm just not going to do it. It's going to come off terrible.
I can be sloppy, especially compared to like the ENTJ, who's like a philosophy professor, where I get kind of annoyed, where I'm like, you know what I'm trying to say, but then they'll like nitpick things that seem like unnecessary. But I think that I am intentional about like what I believe or what I think and kind of like the message, but I think less precision around nuance.
Do you guys get interrupted a lot? Do you feel like it's really annoying and you don't know how to stop that?
I've seen you talk about it before, and I do relate to it to some extent. I think what it is I don't think we get interrupted as much as we think we do. We're just very sensitive to it. I think that I at least for me, I know I'm very sensitive to when I'm interrupted because I feel it's like a disrespect, or it might be a disrespect, and I really like disrespecting is like, just don't.
So for me, it's more like I have a point that I'm trying to say, and people are arguing with you before you even got to your point, and that's my problem. It's like, can you just let me get to my point? I don't know. That's the kind of struggle I have with getting interrupted.
I think part of that could be the savior SE, where we kind of have to get it out, and we feel like if we don't get it out, then we could lose it. And because of that, I interrupt more than I would like to, because I feel like if I don't, I'm going to forget what it is.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's like where it comes from. Like, I don't mind being interrupted that much, but I get frustrated. Like, I don't see it as much of a respect thing, but more like what Benjamin's saying, where I feel like I'm going to lose a point, or I don't get to make the main point.
That's part of it too. I feel like I have some like really unique point here that's gonna. I think it's just the feminine NI. It's just like I've got this point that's gonna go to the ether if I don't get it out, because it's like feminine. It's gonna get lost.
And single activated demon.
Yeah.
It's actually there's a interesting app someone has where it kind of gives points for your different functions and where they're stacked at based on your animals and your masculine and feminine.
Right.
And NI is like the lowest point total for us. And feminine, or the FE is actually higher because it's double activated. That was interesting.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the pains. Is I mostly get NI pain even more than like on a day-to-day basis than FE. I'm trying to do it like make a vision board now. Have you guys done that where you like take things that are meaningful or what you want and like habits and idealized self, and then you make like visual to kind of motivate you?
No,
so that,
tell me about that afterwards.
I did it once before, but I feel like that's useful for us because of our lower NI. It doesn't sit inside us quite as often, like as like focused as some other people. So that's like something that like I trade coaching with a girl in Singapore, and that's something she does as an INFJ a lot. And it just seems kind of powerful because we can get kind of caught up in a lot of tactics and like long-term general direction rather than as like intentional long-term, like trickling down to like regimented and thought out like moment to moment. So I think that having that sort of a vision board will like add more kind of control over myself to my life. But yeah, I was just curious because I don't think we're the kinds of people who naturally do that as much, but I think it's a useful tool for people like us.
I can see that definitely being useful. For sure.
I'm not sure if it would be useful for me. I'll try it, I guess.
It's like a reminder of things that you care about, what motivates you, like what do you want, stuff like that.
it helps for me. I think it would help put a bigger picture in perspective when you look at it, as opposed to just always improvising or realizing what you're working towards.
I mean, I feel like I know what I'm working towards. I feel like I have a bigger picture. I just.
That's what I mean by general directions figured out, but like we aren't as regimented. Like for example, I know like lead blasters are like really good at just like organizing their work and then working their plan. And I'll either like over organize and consume and not work a lot of the time, or I will just start doing it without a plan.
So my problem more is always just the tribe not letting you do your plan. I don't know if you get that. Where it's like I have a plan and I know what I need to do. It's just like, okay, do this, do this, do this. And it's like, but my plan, but I've got to put in my 10 minutes.
No, that makes sense because like, you know, I don't like working. I've talked about this before where I don't like SOPs. I'd rather just kind of do things my way.
Right.
It works for me. And it works for me too. Like the way I do things works because if it does, I'll follow through easier with it. Yeah, the SOPs and doing things everyone else's ways, the meta thing, as you were saying earlier. Kind of
we don't fit very well into big corporations, I suppose.
No. Unfortunately, I've worked for big corporations my whole life.
I've been in one for 10 years, yeah.
it can cause struggles. Like it can, for sure, because like, you know, everyone has to write things down a certain way and do this a certain way. And I work with a bunch of TE people, for one. My boss, like 3 out of 4 people I work, you know, so it's a lot. And yeah, it can cause problems with that. So I just kind of, but I know it too. And it's really helped, you know, typologies helped me out so much with that. Knowing like, oh, that's where my problem's been. I always want to do things my own way. My last boss, one of my best bosses I had was either an ISTP or an INTP. I think it was an ISTP. And he let me do whatever I wanted to do. As long as the work was done, you're good to go. Like,
I like that.
That's great. This is fantastic.
That's great. Yeah.
And what sucks is I took that same mentality to a job where I was then the boss. Oh, that doesn't work at all. You do, because like, everyone wants some sort of guidance. It's like, well, don't you just do it yourself, like I do? So yeah.
Something interesting about our subtype is I think we're the most social ISTPs. You know, being play blasters. And we have bigger, like, kind of front teeth than a normal IJ head. Like, we have bigger mouths. I see it definitely in Chris. And Benjamin, it looks like you have kind of like big lips.
Well, I got like a mustache here.
Yeah, but like bigger than a typical like lead IP, you know. So that's something I just kind of noticed in the physical.
I'm not sure if I'm more social or not. I feel like I'm more social now with what I'm doing, but like, is this social? Like, I've never met any of you guys. I don't know.
So it's play energy.
I think so. Yeah, I guess. But I mean, like, I feel like this is new for me, sort of thing. I'm not sure.
I do wonder still if you're consume, play, sleep, blast as well. Because you think more before you speak, and it sounds like you don't identify quite as hard with the NI problems as we do.
Yeah, he and I talked about it before, and I can see that whenever you talk, Benjamin.
Yeah.
NI doesn't seem to be the same problem that it does for me, and I'm way more. I prioritize FE more than it's easier for me to do. It's easier for me to recognize my, you know, I want to fit in more than the bigger picture thing. I think for me.
Yeah,
that's hard.
Yeah, that would put me as twin types with Dave of all people. I don't know if you know him. He's got a channel too. I'm not sure about that though. Damn it! All right.
Well, it's just.
Anyways, we're going over time here. We can keep talking for hours, I'm sure, and people will probably keep watching. But we gotta wrap this up. So
we're so good looking.
I'm sure that's
true.
Is there anything final thoughts? Anything that you guys want to say? Let's start with you, Chris, and then we'll go to John.
Be nice. That's my last final thought all the time. Just trying to be nice to people because it's hard sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. Be nice. Yeah.
That's how I end
it. I mean, okay, so this is another thing. Lots of people will call us out for being fake when we're being nice, but it's like, you don't want me to be real. Like, the world doesn't want me to be real.
No.
Yeah. Like that's not good for anyone. Me being real. Yeah.
Not too real. No.
I guess a thing to share is like I'm finding a lot more success in relationships with people when I tell them just to be more direct with me, especially like lead NE users. I sometimes don't notice a bunch of little patterns that they're throwing out, and they think it's like black and white clear, and I just like don't notice it. So for people like communicating to us, like just be direct and like straightforward and like kind of like autistically blunt, and like will be so easy. And for us, like we can tell people like, hey, just like be really straightforward with me, so that
I love that. I don't remember that, John. Statistically blunt, because that works for me so well. Like, oh my God, it's so helpful.
Yeah. So that's
I feel like even if I told people to do that, they would still be careful and not be blunt. I don't know why. Like they would still talk behind my back and not tell me to my face what they really think. But I don't know. That's just.
Especially like it applies in general relationships, but also like partner relationships. I found that to be more helpful. I was dating someone like remotely as well, who I think like feminine tribe is harder for me, especially if they're an intuitive type, because like it's not that direct, and so the like missing NI is kind of like freaking out like until the problem is solved or the knowledge is known, and some people are just more comfortable not knowing, or they just figure it out better. But that's something that can like cause me to like go into thought spirals, is just like not knowing things. So as a final statement is just like be kind to your ISTPs and just don't be too kind.
Cool, awesome. What's a thought spiral like? I like thought spirals.
Well, I don't
feel like I'm stuck.
Like overthinking something when you don't have enough data to know, or you're just not seeing a pattern. For example, like, oh, this person didn't call you because they could just be in a certain mood, but we don't know that, so we're just kind of like trying to like overthink things. Stuff like that.
Do you feel like if you think long enough, you'll get to the right conclusion?
That's what my like TI wants to do, but in reality, like I realize it's better to just be more laid back and not worry about it. But my TI is just hard to control sometimes.
Cool, awesome. We got one last question here for John, and then we'll head out. Say have a good one to everyone.
Am I not an INFJ? I don't think I'm an INFJ. In the last Benjamin interview, like people said that they thought that I'm an ISTP who talks like an ENFP, that thinks like an INTP and looks like an INTJ.
You remember the tribe? That one comment got to you.
Well,
you remember it until this day.
Like, a few people like put it together. I thought it was amusing because it was all over the place. But I haven't gotten an INFJ yet. I kind of am idealistic like an INFJ. Like I kind of view myself as a purpose more than as a person, and I'm like okay dying for higher causes, like no question if the math lays out, which I think is INFJ-esque. But
I mean, I get that too, yeah.
But like I'd say ISTP, where I'm very caught up in like tactical, like moment to moment, like problem solving, and also good with the physical world, like athletic and stuff, which I don't think is something INFJs are known for. So I wouldn't go INFJ as a type.
So I'm just going to put this out here as a final thought too. Feel free to say no to questions and not explain all the reasons as well.
Sorry, yeah, that's a good one.
All right, so here, let's practice.
Nah, I'm good.
Yeah, all right. Sorry to just joking around. Okay, have a good one, guys.
All right, see you guys.